Yes, well, the Sport and Recreation Alliance, as I'm sure many people know, is the representative body of sport and recreation in the UK. We've got 320 different members. And I come to it from a slightly varied route, really. I did a degree in philosophy and theology. I did that at the time the Church of England was accepting women priests, but I never had any intention of going into the church. But I did it because it was a subject I enjoyed and found interesting. And I think that's perhaps been a mark of the decisions I've made in my career to date. I then went into the army. I spent 6 years serving in the army, served in the Northern Ireland and Kosovo, left the army in around 2000 and joined the civil service, and did a number of really interesting jobs, both working in sort of arm's length bodies from government. I first started working in the Office for Standards in Education, Ofsted, and then moved into central government. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to go secondment to the Foreign Office, so I worked in Madrid for 3 years, came back to London, and most recently in the civil service was working on the legacy from the London 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And that was the first time that my sort of personal interest in sport and my professional interest came together. And unsurprisingly, as many people who live and work in sport know, it can be great fun when that happens. So I made a conscious decision after that to try and sort of think about moving into sports administration. Here at the Alliance, one of the key things that we do is liaise with and talk to and engage with government and policymakers and try and influence what they're doing on behalf of our members. So actually it's been a very good sort of segue in a sense for me, because I hope I bring from my experience of working in central government kind of understanding of how government works, how to make things happen, how things operate. But also I'd started to get to know a bit of the sports sector through the legacy job, and it's been a great opportunity to learn more about that. Yes, well, as the Chief Executive, I'm responsible for the day-to-day running of the organisation. I'm accountable through my board to our members, and the board have responsibility for strategic direction and oversight of what we do. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm responsible for making sure that we're providing the service that our members require of us and expect of us. And that's a variety of different things. We provide education and training and guidance to our members. We do work on some policy issues that are of relevance to them, trying to influence government and other stakeholders. We do some campaigning work and some promotion of best practice. One of the things that we've done most recently is promoting the Mental Health Charter for Sport and Recreation. We work with the Professional Players Federation and many of our members to highlight the importance that mental health plays in sport, and actually the benefits that sport can bring, both in terms of promoting the mental well-being of participants and elite athletes, but also about helping use sport to demystify and destigmatise some of the issues around mental health. And we've been really impressed and excited by actually the uptake on this. So when we launched it in the end of March, we had 23 initial signatories, and we now, less than a month later, have over 120. And it's really kind of captured the imagination of the sector, and I think shown in a very positive way what the sector can do when it comes together. I'm not sure I've quite yet broken into the sports industry, but I would probably describe my process as a bit of kind of osmosis. As I said, when most recently working in the civil service, that job kind of opened my eyes a bit to opportunities in sports administration. I think probably when I was starting out on my career, it really wasn't something I thought about doing. I don't think I really was aware of the opportunities in sport and recreation. But through getting to understanding a bit of that through the legacy role, it sort of gave me the opportunity to think about it. And one of the reasons that Alliance are supporting a campaign called Inspiring Women in Sport at the moment is about actually there are some fantastic jobs and opportunities in sport and recreation. You don't have to be an elite athlete, you don't have to be an athlete of any level, you can be contributing and playing a part in a whole variety of different fields. And I think people perhaps don't recognise that or understand that probably, when they're thinking about an initial career. And so the more that we can do to promote and highlight opportunities, particularly for women, but for everybody, is a good thing. I think it's about going with something that you find something that you enjoy and stimulates you. Use networks, talk to people, discover what's out there, As I say, I think there's lots of choices. You don't have to be thinking about it purely from a sports perspective. If you're interested in journalism, think about sports journalism. If you're interested in law, think about becoming a sports lawyer. Actually, sport is such an important part of our society, a huge part of the fabric of the country, that actually there are a wide number of opportunities. And so I think the advice I would give for people is go out, see what there is, talk to people, try things, and see what opportunities exist. I think it's about not worrying too much about whether you have a long-term plan. As I said, I didn't expect to be doing this job when I started my career, but if I look back on the jobs I've had and the different opportunities I've had, I wouldn't change any of it. So I think it's about being encouraged and being supported to take opportunities and try new things. I know, for example, when I went on secondment to the Foreign Office, I hadn't worked in Europe before. I didn't speak the language of the country I was going to work in. I hadn't worked in the Foreign Office before, but actually that wasn't a barrier to trying something new. So I think it's about taking opportunities. I think the other really important bit of advice is about, particularly as a leader, is about being consistent and being fair. I've certainly respected that in the people I've worked with or worked for before. And I think if you are consistent and fair, people may not always agree with your decision, but they will respect you for it. I don't think there's very necessarily a difference between being an inspirational leader in the sports industry and in other industries. I think having a certain amount of drive and determination and resilience is really important. I think at times leadership can be a bit lonely, so you've got to be able to kind of get on and do it yourself and not always need to be supported by others. I think you've got to be able to communicate what you want to do very clearly. You can have the best plan in the world, but if you can't get people to understand it and buy into it and follow it, then you're not really going to have very much impact. And I think ultimately you've got to be authentic. You've got to try and be the person that you are. Don't pretend to be something you're not. Latterly, working on the legacy from London 2012, I had the benefit of working for SEBCO, and although that was a part-time role and I didn't have day-to-day engagement with Seb, whenever we did have sort of contact and engagement with him, I always came away feeling kind of energised and enthused and excited. He had a kind of real inspirational character and was able to kind of instil that in others, and that was hugely inspirational.